Welcome to the Gynarchy Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gynarchy Patel. Here we place women's health and feminism front and center where they belong, engaging in conversations that range from the fundamental to the fearless. With insights from expert guests, we aim to break through the barriers of the patriarchy and envision a new world led by the Gynarchy. So let's get started and dive right in. Welcome to the Gynarchy Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gynarchy Patel. And today we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift, Feminist Icon. I have a special guest today. Her name is Dr. Kelly Joy. She is overqualified to talk about this topic. She is a board-certified OBGYN practicing in the Los Angeles area. Obviously, a fellow Swiftie who I met through Twitter. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Okay, so I know you're wearing a concert t-shirt too. So why don't you show everyone? Okay, and which one is that?
Yes, this is from Midnights. This has the lyrics from Antihero. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the antihero.
Love it. One of my favorites. And I'm wearing purple eyeshadow, purple nails.
I love it. Are you a Speak Now girly?
I'm wearing the Speak Now. I mean, look at her
it.
gorgeous gown. And you know what?
Uh-huh.
I'm wearing this one because I went to this concert with my daughter when she was 10. So yes, it's got a special, yes, it's got that particular tour is very special to me. So I have a lot of good memories, and she was very girly with the gowns. And so that's a really big memory too. Yes. So I have been a fan a while. I mean, I wouldn't say I was a hardcore Swiftie until I feel like recently. I mean, she's just fun pop music for years. I've been listening to it with my daughter, but I think I've become deeper, like really almost obsessed, actually. Why don't you share with our audience a little bit about you? You know, you can talk about your career a bit if you'd like, or your background in general. And then of course you need to bring it all back to Taylor. Okay.
Of course. So I'm a millennial, just like Taylor. In fact, our birthdays are not that far apart. I'm about 6 or 8 weeks older than her. So not by a lot, but I grew up in the Central Valley of California. So very like country, and like I lived in the suburbs. Like I wasn't doing all that country kid stuff that they talk about in the lyrics, but I actually started listening to Taylor like from the moment she hit country radio. The first time I heard Tim McGraw on country radio, I just immediately was like,
oh my goodness,
stunned, and also did not realize that she was 16. Like the lyrics were just so mature and so thought-provoking, and they just painted this beautiful picture of this story. And the first time I heard it, I literally sat in my bedroom and I said to myself, like, this girl is going to be huge. Like, this girl is absolutely going to be huge. And for my birthday that year, one of my best friends got me her debut CD, and that was it for me.
Okay. How old were you? How old were you then?
I was 16 also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so you were
16.
Oh, that's right. You said you're about the same age. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, finish your story.
That's okay. But I've been listening to her ever since. She's been just like a huge part of my life. Like there's certain albums that I associate with different parts of my life. And, Fearless and Speak Now came out when I was in college, and Red in 1989 got me through medical school. And Red in particular was like always one of my comfort albums. It like came out when I was going through like a hard time emotionally, and I just felt like I really connected with it. And I don't know, her music just speaks across generations, across genres. She's won Grammys in multiple different categories. She's done country, she's done pop, she's done folk, like everything.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but for me, especially working in healthcare during the pandemic, when everything just felt so bleak and so heavy, like the world just felt really heavy. And when she came out with Folklore, and those first like piano notes from The One just like altered my brain chemistry forever. I still go back to that album when I just need to feel like a warm hug. Just like she's giving us a warm hug and like good cry that we all needed.
I love that. I think that, so it's interesting to talk to you. You're about the same age as her, so you kind of have been going through the phases with her of life,
The life
but
milestones.
I'm much older, and so it is a different experience for me. But what's weird is well, I guess everyone first heard about her around during her country phase, when she first came out. And Tim McGraw also, when I heard that, I had a Tim McGraw phase where I was just listening to a lot of Tim McGraw.
Same.
A lot of
Love
people
Tim McGraw.
love Tim McGraw. I mean, so many good songs. And so when she wrote that song, I was like, oh my God. Like I immediately connected to that song. So that was probably when I first also just fell in love with her. And also then I remember looking her up, like, how old is she? Is that for real? Like I couldn't believe. And she did strike me as like a prodigy because I'm like, wow, this girl's going places. So that I can relate to. And then for me at that time, I'm an adult with children. And so I was just like, wow, what an amazing woman, just out admiring her. And I have to admit, some of the songs, I think the reason I've only become like deep Swiftie, like a real, really addicted now is because she's more mature and her content is more mature.
Yeah,
but back
definitely.
then, yeah, like that the Romeo and Juliet song, like I thought it was cute, but I was like, like some of the lyrics, I was like, oh, you can tell it's a teenager writing it, right? Like I think she mentions like the Scarlet Letter or something, or and I was like, oh, that's kind of mixing and doesn't work, but still, she had fun music, and it was fun with my daughter listening and growing up, and then you mentioned, I do feel like that's when I guess a few things have happened over the years that have just made me admire her more and more, and what you mentioned, the pandemic. I mean, nobody was doing anything. I mean, we were working, certainly, but she was working. Like most artists just kind of put a freeze on things. And she just put out a couple of albums, right? Wasn't it Folklore and Evermore?
And Evermore, yeah, that came out about 6 months later.
Oh my God, everyone just ate that up, so I have admiration for her for that. Yeah. And then since then, I mean, just other milestones, like she's grown, matured. She doesn't seem problematic like a lot of people. And then this last album, I'm sorry, this one has just made me obsessed with her.
Portrait Poets.
Oh my goodness. Yes, this is my favorite album. What is your favorite album?
Oh gosh, it's so hard to choose because again, I mean, she's so prolific. I mean, she has such a massive discography at this point.
Okay, you don't have to choose one.
I like literally can't. It depends on my mood. It depends on my mood. Like I said, Red has always been like a very like a comfort album for me. Folklore in the same way. And Midnights too. I think she told a lot of really interesting stories and did a lot of she just told a very interesting story through just really mature lyrics and a mature sound that, she had experimented with before, but I thought every album she does something different. And it's just so exciting to watch her grow and change. And
that's so true.
And to also to hear about the way she writes songs, kind of going back for a moment when you mentioned Love Story, the Romeo and Juliet song. She wrote that.
I'm sorry, I called it.
No, you're fine. Like my brain
my
goes.
Gaps, my knowledge gaps
good.
about Taylor.
When it comes to Taylor, so I'm like, circle back to this. She wrote that song in 20 minutes on her bedroom floor after getting in a fight with her mom about a boy that she liked. She wrote that song in 20 minutes.
I didn't know that. Wow.
After they did the folklore sessions on Disney Plus, they did like the folklore Long Pond, like the live session where they all played it together. Her and Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner. After that, they were like sitting out on the porch and drinking wine, whatever. And she went upstairs and came down like later that morning with "'Tis the Damn Season" for the Evermore album, fully fleshed out.
Yes.
Like there's been articles on the internet published of, Jack will send her a track or Aaron will send her a track and they'll go out for a run and they'll come back from their run and she'll have sent them a fully fleshed out song, lyrics and all. And it's just the way she processes life through her music. Like whose mind works that fast? Like who can come up with an entire story like that?
I agree. She's impressive. She's impressive.
Incredible.
yeah, just how many years? I mean, I wrote down some stats about her. Okay, born Taylor Allison Swift, named after James Taylor. I didn't realize that. That was cool.
Love that.
Birthday, December 13, 1989. So she's only 34. And so 20 years of being on top of the charts and like now just killing it even more.
Oh my goodness. Like, I
Right?
remember in the 1989 era, the original thinking, like, there's no way she can get bigger than this. She's the biggest star in the world. And she's left that in the dust. Like,
Yes,
it's just
yes.
incredible seeing how massive this fan base has grown and her influence and everything. I just heard on the radio today that they're talking about dissolving the Live Nation and Ticketmaster monopoly.
She has the
And
power.
there's like that is directly influenced by what happened with the Eras Tour sales.
Oh my
Like,
God.
it's incredible.
Okay. I mean, I wrote down, okay, we should spend a moment on her
Yes.
achievements. This is
Yes,
about how
absolutely.
she's an incredible feminist icon. And I know she gets a lot of critique, but I feel I want to mention, I made notes and I feel like these are important things to mention because she's only 34 and her legacy is kind of incredible. Like I sort of stop and think, what else is she going to do in this lifetime? She's
The
achieved
future's
more.
bright. The
Yeah,
future's
she's
bright.
achieved more than any of us could ever hope for before getting married and having children. And maybe perhaps people never do that, but I don't know. Like, let's see, most streamed artist on Spotify, highest grossing female artist, first music billionaire, 2023 Time Person of the Year. God, I love that cover with the cat.
Yes.
I love that cover. I'm just obsessed that she made cat ownership cool. Like they can't insult feminists anymore with cat ownership. Like, oh, cat, you're going to be a cat lady. Yeah, what's wrong with that? We love
Yeah,
cats.
cats are awesome. I have two.
uh, oh, great, great. I'm still a dog mom, but the only reason I don't get a cat is because I'm worried he's going to not get along with the cat. But that
Yeah.
is the goals. I need to figure that out. 14 Grammy Awards, Primetime Emmy Award, 40 American Music Awards, 39 Billboard Music Awards, 23 MTV Music Awards, a Grammy Award Album of the Year, MTV Video of the Year, IFPI Global Recording Artist of the Year. She's an actor in Valentine's Day. She had that Broadway showing in Cats and that documentary. Of her acting things, I don't know if you would count documentary as acting, but that documentary was also really got me
Incredible. Incredible.
incredible. Yes. So amazing, amazing talent. And yeah, we should spend time talking about the documentary, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What were some of your favorite moments?
I think one of my favorite moments from the Miss Americana documentary is when she talks about kind of her journey to standing up and speaking her beliefs more and
Yes.
talking about kind of how she was raised up in country music and in the music industry in general to be a good girl, say please and thank
Yes.
you. Don't sing anything controversial, like, just smile and wave and be pretty. And when she finally like had to shed that people pleasing exterior after all the controversy that happened with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian and all of that, and she learned to finally like stand up for herself and speak her truth and not feel caged by what society has been telling her. And when she says she had to unlearn all of that, I thought that was really powerful description of her journey. And I think for those of us who grew up in the millennial generation, where I think there were a lot of toxic media influences about how women should behave. And I think it mimicked kind of my own like people pleasing journey. Like I'm very much like a perfectionist type A,
Mm-hmm.
people pleaser, don't want anyone to be mad at me type person as well. And I can see a lot of myself in that of like learning how to like
Mm-hmm.
stand up for myself and my own needs. And I thought that was just like a really powerful journey of her learning to find her voice in that way.
Yes, I love that element. I mean, you can, like her talking about her diaries when she was younger and how she just wanted to make everyone happy. And I was very moved by that too. I think it's very common story for us women because we are conditioned from a young age. Even if your parents weren't like this, society just really does brainwash us into like boys can be naughty, and it's sort of like, oh, boys will be boys. And, aren't they, I don't know, clever, or it's sort of like seen as a good quality in boys to be a bit naughty and not good. But girls, it's very much a negative. And, and it's, you could see, I thought that was so good also to talk about how that Kanye moment, I mean, as horrible as it was, it did kind of radicalize her, because the world sort of hated her. She talked about that, how for a while she was just being canceled in the media, and horrible things were being said about her. And being a privileged white woman, it's so easy to cancel her too, but by people. And this is like a Black man saying Beyonce should have gotten more attention. So you could see how she could draw a lot of enemies, from that, even though it wasn't her fault. She's only, I think she's just 19 or something like that, 18 or 19. And like, she just won an award. She didn't do anything wrong. So they gave her the award. You can get mad at the, the award givers. I think it was MTV.
Yeah, the VMA.
Oh, yes. So, and then I think she talked about becoming a recluse. So it was kind of a moment that radicalized her, right? Like, and that's relatable too as a woman. Like, things happen in life, where you just realize like, I've been a good girl and you hate me. Why be good? Why not be myself?
Would you treat me the same way if I was a man, or would I have to deal with this nonsense if I was a man? I had a moment like that at work recently. I was like, would you treat any other specialty like this? Or is it just because we're obstetrics and gynecology? Is it just because we're female surgeons working with female patients? Like,
yes.
And it's something that I think all of us women in healthcare, but especially just women in the broader society, see as well. Like, would I get the same treatment if I was a man? Probably not.
That reminds me of The Man, the lyrics, which I love. And I was, because before this podcast, I was thinking that would be great to look up like her most feminist songs. And I decided my favorite feminist song by her is The Man. And I think it's worth quoting it here since you brought that up. Okay, here it is. What's it like to brag about raking in dollars and getting bitches and models? And it's all good if you're bad, and it's okay if you're mad. If I was out flashing my dollars, I'd be a bitch, not a baller. They'd paint me out to be bad, so it's okay then I'm mad. So, and then more. I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man. And I'm so sick of them coming at me again, because if I was a man, then I'd be the man.
Yeah, I mean, you listed off all of those accomplishments of hers. What man has what
man has
modern music has come even close to that? She's now, awards wise, she's in a league with like the Beatles and Michael Jackson, like,
yes,
once in a lifetime acts. And you just realize she's not competing with her peers right now. She is heads and shoulders above her current peers. She's competing with the legends right now. And it's just wild when you think about it historically.
Yes. That Miss Americana documentary, I feel like she mentioned that. Like, she is just, very just a high achieving, driven woman. Another thing I just admire. And she is, I think you're right. She's not competing with others. She's competing with herself. She's like, I'm trying to make the next album better than the last album. And that's getting harder and harder. Right?
The first thing she said when she didn't get Grammy nominations for Reputation, she said, okay, I guess I just have to make a better album. And she's competing with only herself. She's not on a playing field with anybody else at this point.
She's admirable. I mean, she seems, I hope it's not like a dissatisfaction with herself. I think it just makes her happy too, though. She seems to, how could you do this long with such passion if you just didn't love it? Like, it's clearly just her expressing herself. I think that's why she has the longevity. Like, she's really living a peak existence, like enviable, like doing what you love and the world loving it. Right?
And going back to when you said that Tortured Poets is your favorite and has made you just absolutely obsessed with her.
Yes.
When she announced it and it was coming out, she said, more than any album I've ever written, I felt like I needed to write Tortured Poets. And it was like how she processed everything that she's been going through in the last year with her personal life and those ups and downs. And I mean, for goodness sakes, the album is what, 31 songs long with the anthology track.
It's unnecessary
And
to
she
have
did
a
that
30
in 2 years. 2 years she did that. Like, that's incredible.
No one expects any artist to put out a 31 song album. So that just shows you like this is just coming out of her. This is just what's in there, right?
And two, it's more than any of her other albums. I don't think this one, I mean, obviously it's a commercial success, but I don't think that was the point of it. It's not a 1989. It's not a whatever other album you want to compare to of her biggest commercial successes. There's like a couple pop hits on it, but it's not really a radio bangers type album. It's just her processing her emotions. And I think that's what makes this particular album so unique and so special, is that it's not necessarily for the masses. It's for the people who get it and for the people who are analyzing the lyrics and using them to process and feel their own emotions. And it's actually one of the albums that I actually haven't been able to listen to as much. It's so good. I love it and it's phenomenal, but it's so profoundly sad that sometimes I have to give myself a little break from it. It's a tough one.
Been listening to it for weeks and I'm not really done listening to it. Yeah. And you know what? I want to return to this. We were talking about the documentary, so let's finish talking about the documentary, and then we'll get back to Tortured Poets department, because I have so many things to say about that. But I don't want us to stop talking about the documentary.
For sure.
What I was going to say is you mentioned also about the documentary how her politics came out a bit for the first time, and that was. Because I remember that, you probably do too, for a long time, like a classic country artist or any pop artist, really, she was not getting political because it's like she was just playing the role of musician and trying to stay away from politics. So I thought that was a very powerful moment too, when she came out and took a side with the Tennessee midterms and supported the Democrats. And I think that documentary, so I have friends that are not really Taylor Swift fans or listeners, but watching that documentary and that moment made them fans, because at the end of the day, like it's just so nice to see like her take a moral stance on something, like instead of being on the sidelines. And I think it's just her passion came out, like. And that I think was probably the start. When did that documentary come out? I think I wrote it down. 2020. Okay. So I guess the pandemic, then the documentary, and that's probably when I feel like my love for Taylor Swift deepened.
I think there was a record voting registration among young voters after her Instagram post. It got millions of likes and hundreds of thousands of new voter registrations. And I mean, again, just that influence on young people who otherwise might not have taken an interest, but saw someone that they look up to speaking out about someone who had dangerous policies and who was going to contribute to taking our country backwards. Seeing your idol say that could absolutely inspire a young person who wouldn't have otherwise registered to vote or wouldn't have otherwise cared about the issues. And I think that's really important.
That definitely influenced me selecting her too, because it's an election year. MAGA hates her, or a lot of MAGAs hate her. I love that. I mean, that kind of influenced this podcast, because I'm like, it's an election year. Let's talk about Taylor Swift and get MAGAs annoyed. And hopefully turn out people to vote, and I hope she has a similar move this year, because we certainly need it. People make a lot of comments about how there's no good candidate. I'm like, yes, okay, you can say that, but my goodness, it's so important to vote, because the country can go in vastly different directions. I know you think every direction is bad. They're not equally bad, you know?
Absolutely agree with that.
So, yes, she has a powerful influence. And I love that she supports, and I think because of her experience, she talked about that as well in the documentary, which was great. Her experience with getting sexually assaulted and then going to trial and what that experience was like. So she's, sexual assault survivor and advocate for, sexual assault victims, LGBTQ plus community. She's supports, Black Lives Matter. So I think we should remember not, I think people want to say she's just another privileged billionaire, but she doesn't have to say anything. She can still just make albums and go on tour and make millions of dollars.
Absolutely. Peers are doing it all the time, but she's using her massive platform to actually try to push through meaningful change in our society. I mean, the end of her "You Need to Calm Down" music video was a advocacy for the Equal Rights Act. Yeah.
GLAAD?
She did name drop GLAAD in the song, but I think it was specifically for the Equal Rights Act and encouraging people to support it. To sign a petition to Equal Rights Act.
I didn't know why I didn't remember that, but yeah, that video, one of my favorites.
So fun.
I love it.
So
yes. Yeah. So back to that sexual assault case. That was such a moving part of that documentary when she talked about that, because, she was talking about how harrowing it was to go through that. She mentioned that there was photographic evidence of this guy grabbing her butt. Plus, there was that DJ at that radio station. There were 7 witnesses. Okay. And I think he may have even admitted it. And she still had to go on trial and, get all this criticism, and just being on trial and having to, I think she made a comment about what is it like for other women who don't have this level of proof and evidence, to just be not believed, like that was kind of a moving moment. And then when she showed her, I think they had a clip of her at her concert, like 1 year later, playing at the piano, and she was playing Clean, which is such a perfect song after winning that case, and just, moment sharing with other sexual assault survivors,
And yeah, to your point, so many women aren't believed, and she's the biggest star in the world, and she still had to go to court. He sued her for defamation and all of these things, and she still had to plead her case and make sure that people believed her. And fortunately for her, they did. But like you said, there are so many women who don't have that level of evidence or proof, or they're disbelieved by the system. And I hope that seeing that experience and her sharing that experience through her documentary allowed those women who maybe didn't feel empowered to stand up for themselves, that they felt a little more empowered and a little more supported, because thinking like, okay, if Taylor Swift can do it, like I can do it too.
Right. Thanks for clarifying the details of that trial. Right. Because the way that went down was, I think he did that. She reported it to the radio station. He got fired. And then he sued her for getting fired, which is ridiculous. And then she counter-sued for $1. And that's the trial she won.
Yeah.
And yes. So God.
And I think that's important too. She wasn't in it for money. She was just in it to have her side of the story on the record and believed. And I think that's so admirable.
Exactly. Yeah. Another iconic feminist moment. So I also liked in the trial, in the documentary, how she talked about her eating disorder, and talking about how she thought it was normal to feel weak and like on the verge of passing out at the end of shows, and having to like get to the point of not being so hard on herself and examining all, like reading or consuming all the media, what everyone said about her. And I think that ties in with the good girl thing, like she wanted to please everybody, make everybody happy. You're never going to make everybody happy. Just stop trying. Be happy. Just be happy. Right?
Yeah. I think also, again, coming from someone who's in a similar age group or the same age, we grew up with a very toxic dietary culture as young women, as teenagers coming into, our adolescence and adulthood during the like Kate Moss heroin chic fashion industry where thin was in, and if you could see somebody's rib bones, they were too heavy, and these beautiful stars would be on the cover of tabloid magazines, like enjoying a beach vacation with like a little, like just looking normal, and they would say, oh, Britney Spears, she's put on weight. Or I still remember the famous picture of Jessica Simpson singing on a concert stage, and she was made fun of and called Miss Piggy and all of these horrible things when she was a normal, average-sized woman. And that was what Taylor Swift and I grew up with as normal. The Special K diet, like replace 2 of your meals with a bowl of Special K, or 2 of your meals with a Slim Fast, or
interesting.
Get your salad dressing on the side and dip your fork in it, because that's where all the calories are from. Like, these are the messages we received as young women. And it's really damaging, and it's really hard to undo a lot of that. And then especially when you're in the public eye, multiply that by 10 million, 20 million. I mean,
yes. I mean, she grew up with this in front of cameras, and like, God, how would that be? Someone's constantly taking your photo, and then on one unflattering photo like that, it really can affect you mentally. So she's impressive that she obviously somehow, we don't know, I guess, all the behind the scenes, but that she's come out of it. And I love that she is comfortable, like with her body now.
About it.
Right. Can't exactly sharing her experience. And now, exactly. Sharing that. It may have been in one of her songs too. Didn't you have a song about, I can't remember, but singing about her, her body and like people judging her body. So let's see. I wanted to talk about other moments that are important and powerful as a woman. So one of the things is like just tackling the music industry, for example, like the streaming. She withdrew her music. I mean, people were angry at her at the time, right? In 2014, she withdrew her music from Spotify. And in 2015, she criticized Apple for not offering royalties to their artists in the 3-month trial period. And in both of these cases, she changed the music industry. It changed how artists were being rewarded. So I think that's also admirable. I love that she's financially savvy. And I do feel that's probably partly influenced by her parents, or I think her dad works in finance. Don't they both have a finance background?
I think he was a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch, and I believe she may have also worked for Merrill Lynch. Or they both have financial backgrounds. And so she's obviously very financially savvy, but I think even more so than the financial savvy was the recognition that she was like, I'm going to do okay. Like, I'm going to be fine financially, but these younger artists who survive off of these streams, survive off of this, like, this is how they make their living. This is how they pay their rent. Like, I'm going to be okay, but this is not okay for the younger artists who rely on this income. And I think that's been something that I've always admired about her, kind of as an overarching theme, is that when she's advocating for something, it's not just because it benefits her, it's how it benefits the younger artists or the artists who may not have as much of a platform as she does. Say, you know what, I'm going to be okay. Like, yes, I want to own my music, and I'm going to rewrite all of the Taylor's versions. And if no one buys them, it's just a project for me. But like, this matters for other artists too. Like,
that is such a good point. It's such a good point because, right, like these moves help other smaller artists, right? And I do think that she gets a lot of flack. I see that sometimes on social media, like saying that she's trying to not let others succeed or other artists succeed. It's like there's no time of year you can release music that it's not going to squash somebody else releasing that month. Like she just is a huge draw. So, they'll say like she's dropping it this month and it affected, I don't know, Billie Eilish's release or something, which I don't think is fair because she seems like she is a supporter of other artists. She does not strike me as somebody that is truly like Kanye West trying to squash fellow artists,
I mean, you see her at the Grammys or any awards show, she is standing up, she's dancing to every single song. She knows all the words. She's supporting every artist. She might be the only person standing in the entire room. You cannot tell me that same woman is trying to negatively impact someone else's album sales. Like,
I just don't believe
I don't believe that.
I don't believe it. I think anything she does, there's just going to be this faction of people that will put a negative spin on it,
It's always going to be trendy to hate Taylor Swift. It's all, there's always going to be the detractors in high school. It was not cool to be the Taylor Swift girl. In college, it wasn't cool to be the Taylor Swift girl. Like that has never changed. Like that has been a constant. Even with her increasing fame, there's always going to be people that are going to find something negative to say about her. But I think her actions speak so much higher. Like, the way she tries to elevate artists, the way she donated to local food banks along every stop of the Eras tour.
Yes.
I think one of the cities, it might have been Cincinnati, I can't remember, said that she donated enough money for them to feed people for a year.
That's amazing.
And that would and she didn't do like, oh, I'm Taylor Swift and I'm giving this giant check to a food bank. It's all done very quietly. And it only came out because the food banks were reporting it and saying, oh my gosh, she gave us this generous gift. And I think she chooses her moments very carefully of when to utilize her massive platform, like with the voting and sexual assault and LGBT rights. And then I think there are other times when she uses her philanthropy very quietly just because she's a good person.
I think she is. I was not I was not a hardcore Taylor Swift fan until like maybe the last few years. I feel like I liked her pop music. I took my daughter to a concert, but it's not like I was some hardcore fan. In fact, I'm also a fan of Kanye's. I like a lot of Kanye's music, a lot, and my son listens to it. So I was conflicted around that era. I thought what he did was just shitty, but I was also like, yeah, they should like recognize Beyonce. And I don't know. I was just and then you hear rumors and it's like, I don't know what to think about, people, but she has proven herself, like her actions, her words, her lyrics. I think that how can you think she's a bad person? How can you think she's really intentionally out there to harm somebody? She's really essentially that good girl that she always wanted to be.
I think so. I mean, her parents come to every single
she's wholesome
show with her. They're truly a close-knit family. I think she has great family values, and I think she's grown up to be a really strong and inspiring woman because of all.
Actually, that's so funny. Okay, we didn't finish talk about the documentary because that was another favorite moment is her mom, having breast cancer and then her saying something like, my mom is my favorite person. And I mean, as a mother, the funny thing is like some of her songs that I adore, like back before I became a hardcore Taylor Swift fans are the mom and daughter songs. Okay. Like she's written songs about her mother, like
The Best Day.
Oh, The Best Day. Oh my God. Every time I hear that song, like my eyes water and I feel like, like anyone who's had a good relationship with their parents, like they can relate to that. And then I hope that my kids feel that way about, their upbringing too. The Best Day. And then Don't Ever Grow Up. I know that's not really about her mom, but it's like speaking almost as a maternal figure to a young child. And it's just so beautiful. So that's it. I think you mentioned that in the beginning, like she just does have, her songs just connect to women at so many different phases of their life from and it's been amazing to watch her mature from girlhood to womanhood. And it's exciting too. Like, where is she going to go? Will she have a family and also have more songs? And, it's like, I love all the phases too.
And, she's made girlhood cool. Like, it's cool to get all dressed up in glitter and pink and sparkles and go to the Eras tour and sing Taylor Swift songs like at the top of your lungs. Like, she's made that cool. Like, again, like I said, growing up, it was not cool to be the Taylor Swift girl. I dressed up as her for one Halloween in college, because I had I don't like dressing up for Halloween. It's just a lot of pressure to put an outfit together. It's a lot. But I had like a white sundress. I curled my hair and then I printed out like a guitar.
The teardrops on your paper. Guitar.
Yeah. And then I took some ribbon. I took some like sparkly ribbon from like the sorority house craft room. And I wore it around my chest as my guitar. And people out would be like, "Oh, are you going to write a song about me?" And I'm like, But she's made that cool again. Like, it was, it was the summer of Barbie and the summer of the Eras tour and the Renaissance tour. It's like the summer of feminism. I loved it.
I love it. And the other thing I love about her is she's feminine without being like, how do I say this? Because I think women should be able to do and dress however they want, but she's for the female gaze. She's feminine, but for the female gaze, not like hypersexualized,
Yeah.
Like, she's sexy. Yeah. She has her sexy moments, but she's not like, you can tell she's not like, I think that's why she gets a lot of flack from people like, oh, she's, like toxic men would say she's not the most beautiful, but she's not trying to please the male gaze.
Yeah, no, I think that's the perfect way to say that. I've always been enamored by her fashion choices.
Yes.
And the way she changes her style from era to era. And you could, she also, we've seen her grow up through her fashion choices as well. And yeah, I agree. She's not dressing for men. She's dressing for herself, and she's dressing because she loves fashion and wants to try different things with her fashion and her style. And yeah, she doesn't care if the men are looking at her. Maybe she does. I don't know her personally. Maybe she cares, but yeah, I agree. She's not over-sexualized.
She's not trying to be like sexy bombshell. She is just being herself. She's a girly, feminine, she's a feminine woman, and who's doing, saying, wearing what she wants. She's being her authentic self. And isn't that wonderful for us to see? Like, just be yourself, And yeah, so I love that about her. Oh yeah. So other iconic feminist moments. You started mentioning, we were talking about the helping other artists, but you were also mentioned her re-recording her albums. So I want to talk about that. So 2019, she had a dispute with Scooter Braun after he purchased Big Machine Records, including her masters, which she tried to purchase, but they declined. And so her brilliant move was, no artist has ever done that. Like, how badass. I fucking love that. Like, re-recording her album.
And we have to give credit also to Kelly Clarkson, who gave her this idea.
That's I remember hearing that. Go ahead.
Kelly Clarkson tweeted to Taylor Swift and said, "Hey, I had a thought. You should just re-record all of your albums with like slightly different production changes, and that way you own them, and then you wouldn't be violating your contract and you would own your music." And now every time she releases a re-record, she sends Kelly Clarkson like flowers or something like that. Yes. And just like one feminist icon supporting another.
Yes.
But I've really enjoyed her journey of re-recording her albums because, again, as someone who's been listening to her since the very first single, like before as the album was coming out, I'm getting to re-experience all of those eras in my life and getting to hear them with her more matured vocals and with some slightly different production, and getting to hear new songs. The vault tracks are really cool, and getting to hear more of, other things that didn't make the cut. And I mean, my God, there are brilliant songs on some of those vaults that I'm like, this didn't make the cut. Like, what else did you leave on the cutting room floor? Like,
I know. It's
it's just, again,
impressive.
like her prolific songwriting, just we see more of it there.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah, so she released Fearless, Taylor's version, Red, Taylor's version, Speak Now, and 1989, Taylor's
Mm-hmm.
version. And then I guess, is that the end of it? She may have some more.
There's two more. Reputation Taylor's versions is still due to come out, who knows when, and then her self-titled debut, Taylor Swift. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
those are the last two. The rest from Lover, Word
Amazing.
She Owns.
Love it. I love a woman, her. Yes. And how wonderful. Like, see, there's an example of her, of artists supporting each other. Girls, they're girls. I mean, how wonderful. Kelly Clarkson doing that. What a brilliant idea. So, okay. So I was going to ask you, okay, like if you had to, I know this is impossible, right? And it's impossible for me, but I was thinking about it. There's always like one song that like, I just have to drop everything. And I don't know, it just hits different. But do you have some songs like that are just like, oh my God, like they're just
many.
Yeah, there are too many. There's too many.
Oh,
well,
many.
Okay, I'll start. There's
Okay.
just something about style that when it
Yes.
starts playing, I don't know. It's just for like years. When that song comes on, I'm just like, oh yeah, that guitar in the beginning, and then like there's just something sexy and sultry about it, and the lyrics.
Yes. One of my favorites of hers. And sometimes I think that her choice, 1989 excluded because her choice for singles on that album was great. But sometimes like the singles that she chooses are like maybe not what I might have chosen if I were releasing the album or whatever. And, and also who am I to, I'm not an artist. Who am I to say, oh, this would make a better single. But Style was chef's kiss. It was
I
one of the, like,
know.
I would like, don't change a thing about it. It's perfect.
Yes.
And yeah, I agree. It's like sexy, it's sultry, but it's not overtly.
It's like a fun pop song too. I don't know. It just gets me.
Yeah.
I also
I'm
think
with you.
a new old song that I kind of like felt like was underappreciated is New Romantics. That one also like just, I don't know, like the
That's a fun
lyrics
one.
started kind of really getting to me like, oh wow, that's clever,
It's a really fun one. And it's, just kind of encapsulates being young and just what it's like to be young and free and things that we are not in medicine, things that we don't get to do in healthcare, but we could.
I do. So I think she gets criticized for that, like the songs being, I don't know, that just reminded me, like she gets criticized for the songs being just like overly, like too much about boys and romance. But I personally feel that, so now we can talk about tortured poets. I feel like she's evolving. Yes, a lot of tortured poets department is about breakups and stuff, but there's other themes now and really deep perceptions. I don't know, just thoughts that she's had about her experience that makes you empathize with her more, I feel.
And I think it's different getting your heart broken as an adult than getting your heart broken at 16. And I think her lyrics reflect that. It's a much deeper hurt. It's a much more complicated situation. Maybe you envisioned having a family with this person. Maybe you envisioned forever with them, as opposed to like, we went to the soda shop. I don't know what teenagers do. Like, we went out on a date. Like these are people's life decisions. And I think the complexity of her lyrics and the complexity of the quote unquote breakup songs reflect where she is in her life, that it's not just a girl with a guitar singing about a boy that broke her heart. She's processing those emotions.
Right. She talks
Imagine dating someone for 6 years in your prime reproductive years when by all accounts, she did want to get married and have a family. And then there's no
right. And she
no
sings
ring,
about
no ring at the end of that. And
right. She said something like,
that's a lot to process.
Right.
That's a lot to work through.
think the lyric was something like, I'm mad about the youth I gave you or something,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Or the
I'm
lost
I'm pissed off. I gave you all that youth for free.
free.
And then
Yes.
she said something about she died on the altar waiting for proof that he loved her. Like,
Right. That's
oh
so relatable for so many women who are in these situationships for years when they should be just
yeah.
moving along, right?
Um,
And yes, more mature, like themes about the relationships, and even just I don't know. I mean, at first when that album came out, Tortured Poets Department, the title sound people were making fun of how corny it was, right? The title, but I'm like, oh no, I listened to this down like she is a tortured poet. Like the
yeah.
lyrics are so good.
Oh,
Like
when she announced the album title, I said, "Oh, this is gonna be good." I just knew. I just knew it was gonna be the lyricism and
yes, yes.
the lyricism of Folklore and Evermore with the like emotional devastation of Midnight. Like I was ready. I
Yes.
was
Like one of the lyrics I love is like, how much sad did you think I had?
yeah.
And there's
So
so
hold
many
on.
lines like that.
Do I have a favorite one written down? Oh, I have so many.
It's hard. It's
It's
hard. And we're
so
like,
hard.
this should be, it's funny because on Twitter I joked like, she really, you could devote like a college level course to Taylor Swift. So it's really not right that we're winding down here because I could talk about this much, we could talk
Oh,
about this much
absolutely.
longer.
Absolutely. The one that I was just looking at was from The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, which she's now added to the set list at the Eras tour. And in the bridge, which is emotionally devastating, and she's just like
Oh yeah.
screaming it with her soul. I would
Yes.
have died for your sins, but I just died inside.
Mm,
Like, oh,
yes, yes.
like I don't know, that just encapsulates such a love. Like, I would have died for you, and what you
Mm,
did is killing me. I just think she just encapsulates that mature adult heartbreak in such a poetic way. She is the tortured poet.
yes. I love how, like, on LOML, right? It
Mhm.
starts off love of my life, and then that's another devastating moment. And she
Loss of
says,
my life.
loss of my life. I know. And then that other song, oh my goodness. Oh, how did it end is a devastating song when she goes, like it recalls that little childhood, Jack and Jill sitting on a tree, Kissing. And her lyric is, my ghost and me sitting in a tree, Dying. Oh my goodness. Right?
Yeah.
The
The
other,
the
go ahead.
devastating parallel that I drew was from that album was the song I Look in People's Windows,
Mm,
tying back to Death by a Thousand Cuts from Lover. I look through the windows of this love, even though we boarded them up. And then
mm,
tying that into her looking through people's windows
mm.
just to catch a glimpse of her former lover at the dinner table. Like, oh,
I know the woman is, I mean, the other thing I love about the album is these other themes. Okay. Like I feel like, but Daddy, I love him is a little bit of a critique of the Christian conservative, like community that sometimes she must be involved with where she grew up or, maybe her home state or, you know, so that, and then,
also a little bit of a critique of her fans who have weighed in perhaps inappropriately on her love life of,
right.
you know,
People were,
I I'd rather
yes.
burn my whole life down than listen to one more second of all this bitching and moaning. Like when I
Yes.
first heard that, my jaw dropped and I was like, oh,
Yes.
she's mad. She is big mad.
That's a good point. And you know what? Like, I'm sorry. She should express herself. And I feel sympathy for that because what it must be like to be under the microscope like that, right?
Mm. But she
Um,
also says in that song, I'll tell you something about my good name. It's mine alone to disgrace. Like, for
mhm,
someone whose entire life and every single choice that she makes in her personal life is splashed all over the front page news,
mhm.
it must be so hard to feel like a person. She talks about that in Antihero too, that she feels like she's this larger than life figure she can't feel like a normal person. And she's almost telling us, the broader community,
Mhm, mhm.
like, this is my life. You don't know me. And these are my decisions to
Right,
make.
right. It is
And
badass. I mean, that reminds me of, who's afraid of little old me?
I
You
love
know, you should
that one.
be. You should be.
Yeah.
I love her checking people. One of my favorite albums is also Reputation because I'm like, I
Yeah.
like this bad bitch energy because stop walking all over me. I love that attitude.
Hmm.
What else? I felt like, this is an underrated song, but the Albatross is really
Hmm.
touching to me too,
Hmm.
because it's almost like she's warning a boyfriend, like, you get involved with me, I don't know, I'm warning you, I'm the Albatross, they say
Hmm.
I'm here to destroy you,
Yeah.
so,
Great one.
and just so many songs. Yeah, I guess
So many.
we can go on and on. There was one audience question, so let's go
Okay.
there because we have to wind it down. Someone named Jenna Cooper reached out and she said, I hear a lot how she's a typical white feminist. I'd like to hear more about that. What are your thoughts?
I've heard that a lot over the years.
As a critique, because she certainly
Yeah.
gets a lot of critique. I was
I've
expecting worse, but that's what I got.
I've heard that one a lot over the years. In fact, from one of my dearest friends who's not particularly a Taylor Swift fan. I think just as we all do, I think she's evolved. And I think in her younger years, perhaps her particular brand of feminism was a little bit more characteristic of white feminism. Especially in the 1989 era, she had her like girl squad. And I think, a lot of her actions were perceived as very self-serving. Again, we don't know these people on an individual level.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as we've talked about throughout our time today, I think her actions over the last several years, standing up for smaller artists, standing up for marginalized communities, using her voice to raise awareness about various issues, LGBTQ rights, the Violence Against Women Act, all of these huge issues right now. I think she has used, in my opinion, I think she has used her platform for the greater good, for the broader good at this, So
Yes.
I do hear that critique, and I think her feminism has evolved. She even said in an interview, it was on one of the late night shows years and years ago, where they asked her if she was a feminist, and she said no, because
Oh, how
this
long
was
ago was when she was younger?
years ago. Yeah,
Mhm.
younger, like Fearless era, Speak Now era, sometime in there. And she said no, because in her mind, and she explained this later in an interview in later years, that in her mind, a feminist was someone who that she was trained to believe that a feminist was someone who hated women, or not hated women, excuse me, hated men,
Oh, right.
and
Yes.
didn't realize that feminism was about equal opportunities for men and women, and about women having a seat at the table,
Hmm.
and having those equal opportunities that society has been structured against us for.
Hmm.
And I think, I mean, I kind of experienced a similar feminist like process coming into my own feminism, because classic people pleaser, didn't want to be perceived as hating anybody, didn't want to be perceived as like, well,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that men are bad, I'm just saying that women are great too. Like,
Right.
realizing over the years that society has been structured to keep women down, to prevent
Hmm.
women from doing the things that we're capable of. And so I think her journey has mimicked that as well, or her journey has reflected that growth and that change as well.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think so, white feminism, the critique. I mean, let's be honest, right? Yes, she grew up rich, privileged. Her parents, I believe, her parents had she kind of came from money. Her father was able to like move to the family to Nashville to support her career. I mean, what families can do that, right? So she
Mhm.
started as an advantage, and she's a tall, beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed woman. So it is hard for people to perhaps see her as anyone with any disadvantages. And I think there's some hatred. It's not her fault that she has these privileges, right? We should
Mhm.
all be so lucky. And she does not have to use her platform to chat. I think the criticism of white feminism is that you're just supporting your own kind getting further advanced, right? In the world. Like, for example, putting more white women in board seats or and CEO roles. And I think that's important too, not white women necessarily, but all types of women in
Mhm.
important roles. But she has shown through her actions that she's not just about supporting, an elite class of white women getting more power in the world, but also people of diverse backgrounds, women from all different types of backgrounds, and also the LGBTQ plus community, plus the, ethnic racial minorities, so I agree with you. I don't think it's a fair critique. If you look at her, it's her actions that matter. And I think she's proven herself. So
I agree.
All right. Well, I think we have reached the end, but Kelly, do you have any closing thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I could talk for hours more about Taylor Swift. I have many group chats to prove it. But no, I just think that she is an incredible role model for young women, young men, young people, for all of us. Like I said, I think she speaks across generations. I think she speaks across backgrounds, social backgrounds, economic backgrounds, racial backgrounds. I think she's just someone who is a really powerful force for good in our society. And with the way the world has been looking in the last several years, we need more good. We need more good people and good influences out there. And I think she's someone who, this sounds so cheesy, I'm sorry, but I can't help myself.
We're being cheesy today.
We're being cheesy today. Yeah. Why am I apologizing? Why am I apologizing?
We're just being super cringy and being ultimate fans.
But I think she's someone who kind of unites us as a society in a world where there are so many things, so many forces pulling us apart. I think the power of her music and her positive influence is just something that so many people can relate to and can find common ground with. And I just think that's really cool. And it's a rarity. It's a generational rarity. Again, she's on par with the Michael Jacksons and the Beatles and these once in a lifetime talents.
I agree.
And she's one of them.
She has an incredible legacy. Can you tell my audience if they would like to follow you where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. What is my Twitter handle? KJoyMD, I think. Okay. I believe my Twitter handle is KJoyMD. Feel free to follow me. I post about Taylor Swift content, medical content, politics, feminist issues, cats.
Awesome.
It's really a free for all there.
That's why you were invited. All my favorite topics. So my closing thoughts, I like to talk about the patriarchy, how we need to combat that. And I think the patriarchy would like us as women to believe that our most important roles are as wives and mothers. But I think Taylor Swift is a shining example of how women can be many more things or other things. And really, in the Gynarchy, we know we can choose our lives and they can, be as big as our wildest dreams. So down with the patriarchy, up with the Gynarchy.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time just chatting with you and yeah, thank you so much.
Take care. I'll talk to you on Twitter, I'm sure, elsewhere.
Sounds good. I'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Gynarchy Podcast? Know someone else that might enjoy this conversation? Make sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends and family. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and just about anywhere you find podcasts. On social media, we can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Gynarchy. Thank you so much for listening.